Greetings from Indian Council of World Affairs and welcome to a one-on-one discussion with our panelists for assessing the ongoing crisis in Pakistan. We have with us former Ambassador Jordan and Libya and High Commissioner to Malta, Ambassador Anil Trigunath. Sir, hello sir. Looking at the ongoing political and social economic instability in Pakistan, what could be its regional implications?
Well, as you know, Avni, the Pakistan is virtually a failed state. And it is a failed state which has called upon itself this disaster by continuing to support terrorism, which became an instrument of its foreign policy. And that is evident. India has suffered from it for 40 years, but has learned how to deal with it. Because it is a country where you have a certain kind of democracy, which you could easily term into a militarocracy, because military is supreme there, that's the power, and they run it whoever they want it. So there is hardly any kind of a democracy that you can call it. They do have elections, they have a parliament, they have all kinds of institutions, and that is why I feel that they have not been able to keep the economy going. They have they are in such a terrible situation, both, as you mentioned, economically and security wise. They are having problems with the Afghans, Taliban, whom they tried to erect against Soviet Union in the 80s. And today they are in a situation that they are virtually with a begging bowl. And in that kind of a situation, in the country which is also a nuclear power country, that is a threat, because terror it's become a terror heaven. Now, the biggest insecurity that can arise is because of the instability in the country is due to improper handling of the nuclear weapons. Secondly, if there are tribal problems, there are problems in the POK, which is India's territory,
Right.
and we know the Balochistan. We have seen that what is happening in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and then TTP, the Taliban Pakistan, which is also there. This is a problem. That means the terrorism will go out of hand. That is a problem for India and the region. Pakistan has always been promoting terrorism against the then Afghan government and India, of course. And even up to Chechnya and all, you could find their connection everywhere. So that is another very major problem from security point of view in the region. Any stability, if it goes beyond a point, then you would be witnessing an outflux of people, and that will become your another problem at your hand. And then, of course, if there is no stability in the country, that would have a direct impact on India's well-being to a great extent. To the regional, our trade will be impacted, whatever little is left of it. So we'll have to focus more our attention, our resources for impeding that impact from the country. So there are socio-economic impacts, there is security impacts, there is an impact from the military who just followed this zero-sum policy against India. So in order to contain the adverse impact domestically, it's very likely that they can indulge into some kind of an adventurism against India. That could happen. And China's influence will further increase in the region. And that is again a problem for us. And that is why I think from India's point of view, it is important. That's why Indian government's policy has always been that economically stable Pakistan is in our favor.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have with us Sri Tilak Deveshwar, author and member of National Security Advisor Board. Sir, is this rising violence and insurgency in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan reaching its tipping point? Could this lead to revisiting a 1971-like situation in Pakistan? Your views, sir.
It's at this stage very difficult to give a categorical answer. A lot will depend on the response of the Pakistani state to the increasing levels of violence both in Balochistan and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, KPK. If the Pakistan army does not handle these two situations imaginatively, then it could lead to a spiraling violence and the situation could get out of control. So I think a lot is going to depend on the response of the Pakistani state. And I think especially in the case of KPK, where the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which has the support of the Afghan Taliban, is on a rampage, and the Pakistan army is not able to do anything to control this. Last year, there's been a 60% increase in violence. And bulk of this is targeted against hard targets, which is the army and the paramilitary forces. So whether it is their personnel, whether it is their convoys, whether it are their posts, have been attacked. So it is a very serious security situation, and they are not able to get a handle on it. In Balochistan, the situation is slightly different because that insurgency in one form or the other has been continuing since 1948. And now it has become far stronger. So I think the response of the Pakistani state is going to be critical.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have with us Professor Ajay Darshan Behra, Jamia Millia Islamia University. Sir, what according to you should the Sharif government be worried about in the forthcoming months? And will there be a change of government, or will there be a call for fresh elections?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's Sharif government, whatever is going to be decided will be decided by the military. And, the way things are panning out, I don't see the military making any compromises. So it's not a question of whether they are going to have elections or, it's a possibility that there might be a deal with Imran because of, the kind of political instability that he has been able to create. But it'll be kind of a failure of the military if they actually allow for this government to fall. There doesn't seem to be any reason for this government to fall, at least in parliament. We have to watch what's going to happen in the streets, and that is essentially the fear. And if there are any pressures on the military, it is going to come from the streets. So we have to basically watch, what Imran is able to do, what new strategies he has, because we saw, in the last November 24th, 25th, 26th, when he called the supporters to come to D-Chowk. You can read it in two ways. One, that it showed that, he has the ability to mobilize his supporters and bring them on the streets. And on the other side, what you also saw that, the military essentially was able to use force and deal with the problem. So it's a little difficult to say as to what new strategy Imran would have to push the regime for either his release or, to come back to power. But going back to, the question, the way you began the question, that what Shehbaz Sharif's options. Shehbaz is essentially a tool in the military's hand. So let's wait and watch, how things pan out, because it's very difficult to predict what exactly will happen. But my sense is the military would want some way this government to complete its tenure.
Bring in more stability. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your viewpoint. Thank you. We have with us Dr. Shalini Chawla, Distinguished Fellow, Center for Air Power Studies. Ma'am, do you think Pakistan will be able to bring any significant real foreign investment on the ground, including from the Muslim world, in place of the MOUs? And will Pakistan be able to steer out of the present economic crisis?
Okay, thank you. Pakistan has been very keen and asking Saudi Arabia and UAE for the investments. They've also created a special wealth fund, and they are seeking the investment through this fund, which includes the state-owned enterprises. Although we have seen Saudi Arabia and UAE's support at the time of deep economic crisis, and which helped Pakistan steer away from the economic default. But the investments, I think, from these countries will require the confidence, Pakistan's ability to give the confidence to these countries that they will have a stable environment. So investments will, I think, depend on a conducive investment climate. If Pakistan manages to create that political stability, which is definitely required, certainty in terms of policies, because of the instability there is this change which kind of doesn't allow the investor confidence, and above all the security dynamics have to be addressed. So I think if these are the major issues which need to be addressed before we can see through big investments coming from these countries. Apart from that, we have seen that Pakistan is collaborating with Saudi Arabia and UAE in big manner in terms of the military exercises, in terms of collaborating on multiple other issues like including girls' education. So we see a lot of effort to move closer to these countries, but the investments, I think, will require the conducive environment. The second part which you asked about the fact that will Pakistan be able to move away, grow economically. So the economic indicators that we have, the growth figures that we have, are showing good change. So the growth rate is say 2.3%. But these indicators, to my mind, do not essentially represent, unfortunately, a shift in economic mismanagement, which has been the reason behind this crisis in Pakistan. So I think the growth figures are there, but if they can be sustained or do they actually indicate economic progress, I can't say that, because that would depend on Pakistan's ability to actually take over fiscal structural reforms in the country, and very important to be able to reduce its reliance on external assistance and the mounting debt which is not changing in Pakistan, and also very importantly investing in the human capital on the developmental expenditure. So reduction in the non-development expenditure and enhanced investment in development expenditure and human capital, education, health. So there has to be an approach in totality which would require Pakistan to sustain in the longer term these growth in the economic indicators.
Thank you, ma'am, for your insightful
Thank you.
inputs. Thank you. And welcome to a one-on-one discussion with our in-house expert, Dr. Dhruba Jyoti. Sir, what are your views on our recent panel discussion on assessing the ongoing crisis in Pakistan?
Pakistan, from its very genesis, has been going through a crisis of its own creation. As many experts have stated, that this crisis is a never-ending process. So, being a Western neighbor of importance, we need to assess in periods how such crisis is going on, what are the effects, its impact within and as well as on the region. And as we have seen in the last year, in 2024, militancy and insurgency, ethnic strife, sectarian conflicts, political disbalances, extreme instability, economic crisis, and all the other features that I mentioned has been rampant inside Pakistan. So in the new year, there is a need to assess the last year's developments that has taken place, and as well as what way the nation is steering into, what sort of instabilities, what are the more challenges, and the impacts that it's going to make on the region, on South Asia, as well as on the global order.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insights, and thank you for joining us.